Hi everyone, I'm John Peitzman, JP, certified high performance coach and creator of the Build Framework. I help individuals all around the world to thrive in their personal and professional lives. And as the host of this show, our aim is to transform lives one guest at a time. And we do that by having amazing guests. And today is no different. Today we have with us Salena Kulkarni. Selena is a best-selling author, a chartered accountant, a certified property investment advisor, and the founder of the Freedom Warrior Mastermind. A property investor for over 2 decades, she has spent years building unique frameworks to develop sustainable wealth. She is passionate about showing business owners how to become high-performance investors, and she teaches the fundamentals of creating financial freedom beyond their business. Her latest program, Freedom Warrior, is a mastermind designed to help people catapult their wealth by embracing insights normally reserved for the ultra-wealthy. It's my privilege to have her with us here today. Selena, welcome to the Build Show.
Terrific to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I'm so excited to have this conversation. Tell me, I guess, as we start, what are you excited about as we sit here today?
What am I excited about? I think in my own world right now, there's definitely a sense of great flow. As I say reformed chartered accountant sometimes.
Yes.
That was a space that didn't really, give you much creativity and didn't really encourage passion. So I feel that definitely the pathway that I'm on right now feels very much in flow. It feels that, sometimes accountants feel like they don't make a huge difference. So, I feel that what I'm doing now, it's not impacting a huge number of people, but it's making a difference in the lives of the people that I work with. So I'm super excited about that.
Right. And how long has the Freedom Warrior Mastermind been going on? Is that?
Look, Freedom Warrior in itself has only been around a couple of years, but the evolution of the ideas has really been, my life's work.
Right.
It's something that...
It's funny how that works, right? A lot of times we have this vision, this dream that we actually work on our entire lives, but then it actually comes to fruition in a business sense, years later.
Absolutely. So I think my fascination with the world of money and wealth started as a much younger child, but for not the reasons that maybe people would normally assume. Like it wasn't necessary, it was never for the power or, having fancy cars or fancy homes. It was never about that kind of stuff. It was more the play of money and how I saw it shape people's worlds and how it shaped who people were in the world.
So you were that kid who set up the lemonade stand and we're starting to
actually no.
get revenue in business at 5 and 6 years old, or no?
No, definitely not. I mean, I definitely had fantasies of being like the Richard Branson of something at some point, but no, my real driver was actually my dad. So when we migrated from the UK to Australia, he was diagnosed with a fairly serious condition and told he had 6 months.
Right.
And what I saw in him was it was almost like someone flicked the switch, I should say. And he kind of transformed overnight. He became so stressed about how his wife and 2 kids were going to survive. We came to Australia. At that time, there was no kind of beacon of light or hope. But during that 6-month block, he got an opportunity to participate in some experimental type stuff.
Right.
And got told, well, you might have another 6 months. And then it became another 6 months.
Right, amazing.
But, how that shaped him really influenced me. And I kind of saw that there was constant worry around money. And I think as a teenager, it might have even been subconscious, but I just decided I don't ever want to have that relationship with money. I don't want to be stressed about having enough. Luckily, though, I'll finish the story. My father actually went on and survived another 30 years.
Wow.
But
amazing.
I just can't imagine what it would have been like to sort of think you only have another 6 months for a full 30 years.
Right.
So, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, amazing.
And we'll talk about that in relationships probably. So, a lot of gold we're going to talk about. I can tell this is going to be a fantastic conversation. And as you know, we frame the conversation around build. For those of you who still don't know what the build framework is, go to thebuildframework.com. And I'll give you the cheat sheet right now, which is the acronym. BUILD stands for Build Relationships, Understand the Business, Implement Strategies, Lead and Inspire, and Deliver Excellence. And as always, what we do on the show, which is so wonderfully unique, because everyone has a different story with that whole pattern and journey on their life. and we talk about those areas as it relates to your journey. So, and you kind of already started to talk about the relationship piece, I bet, but let's start officially into build and talk about the relationship, building relationships and some of the most kind of powerful relationships that you've had on your journey.
Such a great question, and I love that component being upfront. I think, unfortunately, in Australia, we are, in a lot of ways, led to believe that it's a DIY thing when it comes to building wealth and money. And I think the single biggest influence on my own success was when I started to cultivate relationships with people who could really remove friction, give me wisdom that I wasn't going to get out of a book, and really change my insight. So, I've met plenty of those sorts of people on my journey, but I think, interestingly, my husband's been instrumental in my world. He's a very, I'm a very excitable soul. He's very grounded and calm. But I met a guy when I did some yoga teacher training about 20 years ago.
Oh, great!
Just randomly, but he was probably very influential in terms of, the journey towards simplicity, the pursuit of wisdom. And he really kind of lit a fire in me in terms of understanding the why and the how of, things work. And so I think people can tend to be, especially around the topic of wealth, very mechanical. And there's a lot of formal education out there around money and wealth. But yeah, he kind of taught me to really understand more how it moves, energetically, how it influences.
Yeah, it's an energy, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that was a real shift for me. So
and
definitely.
Are you still in touch with him?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, okay.
So I named my youngest child after him. Yeah.
That's in touch?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
But yeah, someone who just makes sense of life.
Right.
And money is one element of life.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting too, because in the build framework, we talk about centrifugal looping, which is the foundational element being build relationships. And then it's based upon those relationships that you then move to the next thing, which is understand the business. And you already kind of articulated that, which is you built that relationship and then he helped you to understand the business, right?
Yeah, totally.
A lot better. Are there other kind of pearls of wisdom from the standpoint of understanding the business that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Oh, wow. Well, look, I think when it comes to the business of wealth creation, and seriously, if you're an entrepreneur, you'll probably relate more to the business of wealth creation. I think one of the most important things that has really shaped my world is that it's the right education at the right time, the right wisdom at the right time.
Right.
So I think, people tend to think that there's just this bucket of knowledge out there and you just have to consume it all and then you'll understand the mechanics of how things work.
Only it was that easy, right?
I know. And I've become such a fan of this idea that it's about consuming the right knowledge at the right time.
Right.
And, in the business of money and wealth, I definitely feel, and one of the frameworks I talk about is, there's seasons. So when you start out as an investor, you're in spring. And the focus is on how do I create surplus? And if you don't have the fundamentals right about that, you're never going to make it to the other seasons.
Right.
So spring is about how do I create surplus so I can even begin the idea of investing. And then, you move into summer, and summer's all about getting the wisdom that you need to get traction. So how do you use leverage? How do you access the right investments? All that stuff.
Right.
And, once the wall, unfortunately, for most investors sits at the end of summer. So you kind of invest for a while and you think, well, I just got to wait and see what happens now.
Right.
But for those people who ask the question of what else, you can move up into autumn, and autumn's all about optimizing, and this is where the play of money becomes so much more interesting.
Right.
And then, beyond, autumn is winter, and winter is where the ultra wealthy play, and the ultra wealthy are into preservation. So again, there's a different set of wisdom and knowledge that you need at that point in your journey as well. So
I love that analogy. I love the visuals and just the
yeah, well, it's a simple metaphor, but
and weather and seasons, and it's so true. And that leads to implementing strategies, right? So, and that's a great strategy. What other topics come to mind or insights come to mind when we talk about implementing strategies in your journey?
Yeah, look, I think the cornerstone of being a successful investor and creating wealth that will endure. I love the topic of intergenerational wealth. It's one that people give a lot of lip service to, and they don't, like, people talk about it from the framework of you need these legal structures and you need to do tax in this way, but intergenerational wealth is a topic that I think is super fascinating, and the statistics around how many people actually create that is just phenomenal. Like, so I think of
low or high
of all the people who could create intergenerational wealth, and you can read lots of different studies, I think about 5% actually succeed. So it's really low in terms of, and I think the story that I tell is you will make the money, your kids will blow it, and their kids will start over again.
Right.
That's the average. That's
Gotcha.
what the average looks like.
So even if it does pass on from a generation, because some don't even do that much, right? They just don't even have anything to pass on. But when they do, the pattern is then the next generation blows it, and then the cycle continues.
So I think one of the cornerstones for me of, if you're talking about strategy, is the concept, the lost art of stewardship. It's not a word that's used very heavily in Australia. But if you can't be a great steward of your money, if you can't care for, look after, amplify the money that you earn, it's very, very hard to ever be financially free. And so for me, the strategy that has had the single biggest impact in my world has been the fact that early on I learnt great stewardship. And it's about having a really healthy relationship with money, about recognizing when there's, maybe something there that's, causing friction.
Right.
But yes, stewardship as a strategy is about understanding how to kind of channel money into different things in a way that is completely effortless.
Right.
And there's some great things, like there's great tools to automate a lot of that sort of stuff.
Sure.
But I never actually earned a great income from anything I did. Like even when I was, at the height of my accounting career, I think I was maybe on about $80,000. So it wasn't anything to write home about, but I was exceptional at taking $1 and amplifying it.
Right.
Yeah.
And now you're teaching others how to
and
do
now
exactly
I'm showing people. Yeah.
And as part of that, looking at the long game too, like always playing the long game, or do you play some short game and long game, or?
Well, short game is really, it's really about how do I make money in the now? Like how do I have lifestyle, cover my expenses, do what I want to do. The short game is all about money for the now, including in your business.
Kind of,
Well, most business owners play the short game, which is how do I generate as much ROI in my business? And rightly so, it's probably the highest ROI that people can have. But the long game, which sits outside that, which far fewer people play, is where, you take a dollar out of your back pocket and you put it into something that you hope will pay dividends down the track.
Right.
So that's where legacy lives. That's where investing lives. That's where those sorts of skills come into play. So long game is it's the playground of the people who definitely look into the future and want to create financial freedom sooner.
Right. And you use the term sometimes ultra wealthy. I see,
Ultra.
Right? Yeah. So what is that? Is there a threshold? Is that a certain
look, I'm going to
income level, or what is that?
Well, circling back to your original relationships question, I feel that, as I said before, I think we're a nation of DIYers here in Australia. Right. And what that means is that there's a lot of media sources, opinion, like every man and their dog has an opinion about property, whether or not they invest.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that can really colour your worldview of how things should be. But if I think about my own journey, I was definitely a do-it-yourselfer for the first at least decade. I read everything. I did every course out there. I think I've spent about $500,000 in courses and education. But it was when I started to meet the right people that I started to get exponential transformation in my results.
Right.
And when I reference ultra wealthy, for me, the biggest influences in my journey have been working with people who could offer mentorship or guidance. They weren't celebrities, they weren't famous, but the one common denominator was they had the results that I wanted.
Right.
They had a relationship with money, which I thought was pretty cool. And, from my experience is that's kind of the journey that you want to be on, is you want to take advice from people who have the results that you want. And so a lot of those guys were ultra wealthy. They were younger than typically the financial freedom pathline that we all think is normal.
Where you work for 20, 30 years and retire and then
maybe something. Well, I think in Australia it's work for 45
Yeah,
years
exactly.
and then hope you have enough.
Right.
Whereas these guys were financially free as younger people.
Right.
They were very generous in sharing wisdom and knowledge, but they were definitely, they sit in that sphere of people that I would say is maybe the top 0.001% of 1%ers globally.
Right.
Yeah.
Which leads us right into leading and inspiring, because they lead and inspire. They led and inspired you. How do you lead and inspire in everything that you do today?
Yeah, look, I looked at that component of your framework and it really intrigues me.
Yeah.
I've never really thought of myself as a natural born leader. Like I don't think I could run a big corporation, but in the context of my program, the way that I explain it to people is I like the metaphor of guide. And again, I actually got that from my yoga teacher, who he was trying to explain to me before I had children that you never own your kids. Right. You're there simply to be their guide.
Exactly.
And I think the same is true of leadership and business to some degree. The metaphor that I use, because I work in the space of alternate strategies, right. So ones that are not mainstream. And what can happen is people can come along and they can go, wow, this stuff's so exciting, like super great returns, low risk, all sorts of stuff. But when I kind of bring them into the program or into the mastermind, it's really, I'm very conscious of the metaphor of if I took you to Disney World and you saw all these great roller coaster rides and then you just ran onto the first ride and you started riding them, that you could end up in a situation where you come off and you vomit everywhere and you're really sick.
Too much, too soon,
too much,
too
too soon. So my job is to show people what's possible, empower them to make their own decisions around what feels right, help them build out the plan, but it's really the guide. So, I'm offering mentorship and guidance. And the Disneyland metaphor I think is really great. It's like, my job is to make sure you stay safe.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of how it shows up for me, rather than, I think I'm leading in the context of frameworks and showing them a new way of thinking. But, I'm a huge believer in, you want to be in control of your own wealth. You don't want me to tell you what to do. And people come in and they say, Selena, are you going to tell me what to invest in? Are you going to tell me which things to put my money into? And I tell them by the time they're ready to pull the trigger, they won't want my They won't want my
Because everyone's unique, right? I mean, they have the information, but still the decision
totally.
is theirs.
I mean, people are always talking about, show me the deals. Like, what are the deals? But the thing that people have to understand before they get to that is not every strategy is for everyone.
Right.
You got to figure out what fits and what you're comfortable with.
So you're leading and inspiring them to actually trust their own heart and judgment based upon the knowledge to then go to the next step, which is deliver excellence.
Yes.
So how do you deliver excellence in everything you do?
I think my training has made me a very cautious person. I'm fairly conservative. And I think just having come from that, pretty corporate, a background of excellence, really,
right.
I think it becomes part of who you are. Do you want production to be high quality? Do you want your frameworks to be high quality? Do you want your communication? Like everything, it's just, it matters or it doesn't to you. And so for me, the way that excellence shows up is, I really want to be able to put my hand on my heart and say I did the right thing by someone. So excellence is about really giving 100%, being completely authentic, trying very hard to influence people's decision making in a way that's for their best interest.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've talked a lot about the corporate kind of business world here. How do you integrate all of this into your home life as well? You mentioned being a mother as one thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I live with someone, my husband, who is very grounded and balanced. So he's very quick to point out when I'm out of balance. And I know that in the pursuit of, creation in business, you can very easily get sucked down a black hole of overworking and, working really hard. And I think, even in the last few weeks with everything that's been going on, I've been very careful to, put Spanx around my calendar and, there's time for the kids, there's time for the husband, there's time for the dog.
Right.
There's, time for you. So balance. And again, I think I probably draw a lot of that from my yoga sort of training. I'm a wannabe yogi.
Right.
I think, it's not authentic to say that you have balance if you're working 16, 20-hour days. It's about...
Well, it's back to leading and inspiring, right? You can't deliver excellence when you're not leading the way.
Yeah. So for me, mental health is super important. There's so many facets to life, friendship, all those things. So I kind of try and jam them into my calendar as neatly as possible. Yeah. So I think that's kind of like from a priorities point of view, family life is really important. Is that...
That's a plane going
overhead.
That's a plane. Sometimes there's a plane that goes overhead, but that's okay.
Look, all of those things are super important. And I think it's, my husband has this great expression that success is a process of shedding. And I love it because...
I love that.
Yeah, I think, when I was younger, I kind of wondered what it meant to be financially free. Did it mean that you could go out and buy what you want and go where you want and do what you want? And I realized over time that, you even when you have the capacity to do that, you don't really want to.
Right.
It's really the pursuit of simplicity. That's really the highest priority.
Right. That's amazing. Well articulated. And finally, are there any words of wisdom or other things that are pearls that you'd like to share that you haven't yet with our listeners today?
I think one of the things that that really drives new investors when they first start out on their journey is FOMO.
Right. Fear of missing out.
Fear of missing out. And unfortunately, I've come across so many hundreds and hundreds of investors who have somehow been steered towards investments that maybe weren't right for them.
Because they thought that was the next Uber, Facebook, Twitter, whatever.
Totally. And I would, I'd say the number one rule for investing is never invest in something you don't understand. Right. Never invest in something you don't understand. If you don't understand it, don't do it. And never be compelled to take on any kind of investment because you're told that it's time critical, it's now or never.
Right. That sense of urgency, right.
Oh, look, the deal of a lifetime in my world comes around every day of the week. So,
right, of course,
don't ever make a decision, especially like buying a house is such a huge financial commitment. Don't do that, based on FOMO.
Right, great. How can people get a hold of you if they want to learn more or join the mastermind or find out how to gain your knowledge that you have?
Well, you can reach me on any of the socials, Facebook and LinkedIn, but freedomwarrior.com.au is the website. So,
great.
Yeah.
Cool. So by the magic of production, you just saw that on the screen. So thank you so much for being on the show.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been so great to have you here. Thank all of you for joining us as well. For more great resources to help you become your best self, including free worksheets and downloads, make sure to check out thebuildframework.com. That's it for this episode. I'm JP. We'll see you next time on The Build Show.